I don't have time for a fancy intro. You know the deal. Bleav in Mets. That's Jack McKessie. I'm Chris Schubert. The New York Mets are a broken baseball team, and we're here to vent about it. Jack, I'm not going to ask you how are you, because I know how you are. You're annoyed. You're frustrated. Our DMs have taken a dark turn. We're mad at everybody. The New York Mets just got swept by the Cleveland Guardians. The New York Mets have not played good baseball consistently for about a 2-month stretch right now. They could potentially see themselves out of the playoff race if they continue to play this way. Where would you like to start? Where do we start with a baseball team that almost got no hit yesterday? A baseball team that cannot hit in general right now. I'm frustrated. I'm ready to vent. This team's not very good.
I just don't know really where to start, because I just am starting to see red flags and alarm bells. I'm seeing red flags. I'm hearing alarm bells. I'm starting to take the panic button out from my little drawer next to my desk. Maybe even opening up the lid, because the pitching, which we mentioned the last episode, the starting pitching was a problem last series. It was a problem at the start of this series with Sean Manaea. Ironically, Clay Holmes came out and gave the Mets probably the best start of the series, even though he didn't give them length necessarily. He did limit the runs, which David Peterson did not do in the final game of the series. And then obviously, I mean, you mentioned it. The offense stinks. The offense is abysmal, and we saw it in this from about halfway through the second game on what day was that? 2 days ago. Tuesday. Everything's blending together, Chris. And then we saw it for the entire game on Wednesday until Juan Soto finally broke things the right way for the Mets. I'm not going to say open. I'm not going to say anything better than things started going right when Juan Soto hit a solo home run to break up a no-hitter. But before that, it was 14 innings without, or at least 14 times 3 outs recorded without the Mets recording a hit. So again, we talked about it last episode, Chris. The bullpen is great. I like what the Mets did with the bullpen. The trade deadline moves to bolster it. The bullpen's not going to win you any games when you can't score runs and your starting pitchers can't limit runs.
I have pushed against over and over and over again this year, calling the Mets offense bad. Because I think when you call something bad, inherently you're basically saying they're not talented enough. You're saying that there's nothing that the Mets can do to turn things around. The Mets are not bad for a lack of talent. They have Juan Soto. They have Francisco Lindor. They have Pete Alonso. They have Brandon Nimmo. They have Jeff McNeil, who is a batting champion. Those 5 guys, since the beginning of July, the best hitter is Jeff McNeil with a 700 OPS. So I have tried to push against this idea of calling them bad, because inherently to me, that means you're saying that they're not talented. And I think this is a very talented group. But I don't know what other word to use at this point to describe what is happening. Because not only are the results not good, not only are the Mets just not scoring enough runs, but now we're in a very bad place because the approach is bad. These at-bats are not competitive. I mean, it's almost automatic that you know what's going to happen when these guys go up there. And I thought it was really telling. Now, he didn't go all Terry Collins on us. He didn't throw something. There wasn't a chair slammed. But I thought it was the most aggressive Carlos Mendoza has been in a post-game press conference yesterday when talking about the offense, by basically saying our conviction isn't there. Our approach isn't there. We're not adjusting. And he even used the word, it was easy to see what Gavin Williams was doing. And then Carlos Mendoza proceeded to outline exactly the way Gavin Williams attacked the lefties, exactly the way he chose to attack the righties, and basically said, we didn't make an adjustment. And that's on all of us. We come in with a game plan and we don't adjust. And I thought it was the most aggressive I've seen Carlos Mendoza, the most honest we've seen Carlos Mendoza. And he didn't necessarily throw them under the bus, but that was a direct shot at Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez. Great. You have a game plan. You come into these series with a way that you want to attack, but where's the adjustment? Where is okay, we've seen this pitcher one time through. What are we going to do differently? And it's a communication problem. And if the communication has broken down between the coaching staff, the hitting coaches, and the players, it's time to do something different. Now, that being said, I don't think you make an in-season hitting change at this point. I tried to find an example of a team making a hitting coaching change this late in the season, and I couldn't find one. The only thing I can find was the Yankees 2 years ago in 23 fired their hitting coach around the All-Star break. That's as late in the season as I can find a change like this. And I think you do more harm than good by making that change right now. It's just too much chaos with too short of a time. But I don't know what this team does, Jack, because I think the process is bad. The results are horrific. And a team that I think is too talented enough to be hitting this poorly is one of the worst offensive teams in baseball right now.
It's bad. It's a lot of the same things that we've been seeing where there's just no urgency. There's a lot of taking good pitches. There's a lot of swinging through bad pitches. It feel like everything that we had seen earlier in the season, stuff like Pete Alonso not swinging at the down and away slider and being able to go inside out on some inside, changeups or whatever. That's just one example, but those sorts of things that we had seen give the Mets some success offensively early in the season have completely evaporated. And you mentioned the Fab Four plus Jeff McNeil of Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso, and they're just not performing. And you said it, like they're good players. We've seen what they can do when they're at the height of their powers, but right now it's like they're at the basement of their powers. They are the lowest of the low, and the approach is bad. The runners in scoring position issues continue to rear their ugly head in this series. It's been a thing for months now. We've brought it up multiple times. And I'm with you. I just, there's nothing to be done in August. It's August 7th. If you fire your hitting coach, what are you going to do? Right? You have two hitting coaches. Clearly, things aren't working out with both of them. If you fire both of them, that's two random open spots in your major league coaching staff that you have to fill with an assistant hitting coach. There's not really anyone on the outside you can bring in. And again, the beginning of August, a month and a half or so before the regular season ends. And I just don't see any light at the end of the tunnel when the offense has just been abysmal.
The irrational fan in me wants both of those guys fired today. The irrational fan in me wants somebody to be held accountable for what has gone on for the last 2 months.
And I just
That's
think
the irrational fan in me.
I agree. And it felt like Carlos Mendoza stopped basically just short of saying these guys need to go. Yeah, in yesterday's post-game press conference.
The rational fan in me, the one that right now is in hiding. Normally, the rational fan is the one that speaks on this podcast. The rational fan is in hiding right now. The rational fan would say, you can't make this move this late in the season. It's not going to really change things. This is on the players. The players are talented enough. They need to be able to make an adjustment, even if they just ignore what their hitting coaches are saying. They're too talented of a baseball team to be going through this. That's the rational fan. But I don't want to be rational today because what I've been watching for the last 2 months doesn't deserve a rational response. A team that has Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Brendan Nimmo in the top four of their lineup can't hit with runners in scoring position, can't produce runs, almost gets no hit by Gavin Williams and the Cleveland Guardians yesterday, if not for Soto crushing a ball to deep center field to break up the no-no. This is inexcusable. And at some point, I can't keep hearing, and I know there's nothing else that he can do other than fire these guys, but I can't hear Carlos Mendoza every day continue to say, we just got to go out there and do it. We just got to go get after it. Like the group is good enough. We just got to do it. Like at some point, dude, I know they're only 2.5 games. Again, this is the rational fan come back out. 2.5 games out of the division. I know that they're still firmly in a wild card spot. I know that they are 10 plus games above 500. Overall, this is still a successful season right now. They play Milwaukee this weekend. Cincinnati's in Pittsburgh. If they play the way they just played against Cleveland, they could be out of a playoff spot by the end of the weekend.
Yeah. It's bad.
And I don't know what the change is. You can't make an approach change in the middle of the season.
I just don't know what to do because the offense is bad. The Mets are lucky that the Philadelphia Phillies have been as shaky as the Mets have been correlating to the same time. Like every time the Mets seem to have these bad stretches, yes, the Phillies have gained ground and obviously are 2.5 games up in the NL East right now, which I think the biggest lead either team has had in the division since like mid-June or something crazy like that.
Yeah, it's been within a game and a half or a game since like June 13th
Yeah.
They've been
And like,
trading back and forth.
if not for that, like, and if not for the huge, excellent start to the season the Mets had, they would not be anywhere close to a playoff spot right now. Since June, the Mets are 27-30. That's not good enough. And when you're limping into the playoffs, which we don't even know if they're going to be able to do at this point, like there's zero expectation that they're going to contend anywhere past a first round exit.
Oh, I think talking about this team in NLCS or championship verbiage is just ludicrous at this point. I think it's just absurd to talk about them in that regard.
Yeah.
You just can't. I think you can barely refer to them as a playoff team right now because there's no signs of this turning a corner, right? If I saw something in the Guardian series, anything that I could just grab onto and say, no, they're fine, they're going to get out of this, I would. But there just isn't. From the middle of the second game through yesterday, they were a no-show, non-competitive at bats. And oh, by the way, they should have won the second game of this series. Francisco Lindor got up to bat with the bases loaded in the second, with a chance to blow the game wide open, make it 4-5-6-0. And they missed on that opportunity, and they left the door wide open for the Guardians.
And that's a day after Francisco Lindor's double down the line with Tyrone Taylor being stopped at third base. Let the game go to extras and lose that opportunity as well. When you have, I understood in the moment, Mike Sarbaugh, for the record, stopping Tyrone Taylor at third base. You got one out.
It is the
runner
right
on
decision.
third base, and Juan Soto is coming up to bat.
It's not even about that. That's part of it, right? Juan Soto and Alonso being due up next. But I have 2 outs to play with. I don't need to get a hit with my next batter if that runner's at third to win the game. A sac fly, a ball hit to the right side slow enough could get the runner home with Tyrone Taylor's speed. Also, as a third base coach, it is your job to look up, see where the ball is, and you assume it's going to be a perfect relay. You are not assuming that Santana is going to bobble the ball in right field. Right. Because yes, if you know he's going to bobble it, it's the easiest send of all time. But you assume a perfect relay. You have another out to work with. 2 outs?
2 outs.
I'm sending them, right? 2 outs. That's a chance to walk off the game right there. Let's go, right? But you have 2 outs to play with. You have Soto and Alonso. Even if Soto grounds out or pops out, you still have Alonso up, who was 4 for 4 in the game, was crushing the ball all over the yard. I have zero issue with the send. But more importantly, it just goes to things aren't breaking the Mets' way and they're not creating their own luck, because I think we would be talking differently about this series if Alonso or Soto, they walk Soto to face Alonso. If Alonso or McNeil comes through in that spot, they don't lose in extras. If they have that big hit on Tuesday night with Lindor, it's different. But instead, that's just further proof, more examples of this team not being able to come through in these big moments and not showing us any signs of things turning a corner. And the vibes just feel off. There's just no energy. And Carlos tried to go back to the beginning of the season. He put Lindor in the leadoff spot. He tried to
put
rework
Marte
the lineup
in the top spot in the second game. Yeah,
nothing's working. The Mets need to be. They're the computer that's frozen. What do? You turn it off and turn it back on. That's what needs to happen to the New York Mets right now. A full system reset. Maybe this day off is coming at the absolute perfect time, but you go into Milwaukee that I know the last time you were there, it worked out pretty well, but it's the best team in baseball.
Yeah.
You're facing the best team in baseball with an offense that's bottom 5 in the league over the last 2 months. Brandon Nimmo is lost, having his worst season against fastballs that he's ever had in his career, seeing more pitches in the zone that he's ever seen in his career. And I wonder if it's in large part because opposing team scouting reports are he can't catch up to it right now. So we're just going to pour stuff in the zone. He can't make good contact. He's swinging and missing.
Yep. And Lindor has been off since the toe injury, it seems. Like every time it seems like there's maybe an inkling that he's back, like he hits a big home run or that double the other night, you think maybe there's a chance. He even had the first inning comebacker that ended up in a ground out, obviously, but you think he's turning a corner, and then the rest of the game, it's just like nothing. And Pete Alonso, 4 for 5 in that first game of the series, hits another home run to get one step closer to Straw, and then just nothing in the last game and a half of the series. And it's like, at some point, the stars have to start playing like stars, and that's on the first 4 or 5 guys in the lineup, depending on if you want to include a Jeff McNeil and Mark Vientos in there.
I mean, Jeff McNeil's been their best hitter for the last 2 months. He's got a 700 OPS since the beginning of July.
Yeah.
And
And then
that's the best of the Fab Four plus McNeil.
and then the other problem is it's like on the days the offense shows up, like in the previous series against the Giants, the starting pitching was still an issue. Kodai Senga still wasn't pitching well. And
Right.
so when you have Mania not pitching well in this series and falling apart in the sixth inning, and you have Kodai Senga unable to give you any length or any quality performances, and Lord knows what Frankie Montas is going to look like on Saturday, all of these things adding up, the vibes are just at a complete all-time low right now for the Mets. And like you said, they're going into the home of what is now the best team in baseball in the Milwaukee Brewers, who are white hot right now at the perfect time.
The Mets have these hitting problems, and that's where we're obviously starting the show. But the starting pitching is still a problem. David Peterson gave up 5 runs the other day. Sean Manaea had a blow-up inning. Frankie Montas gave up 7 runs the other day against the Giants. Clay Holmes, I guess, got back on track. I mean, he certainly did what you asked, 5 innings and 2 runs or fewer. You'll take that. If that's what he's going to give you every time out, then Clay Holmes can stay in the rotation. But Kodai Senga hasn't had a good start since the injury. And, like, I know we want to continue to have the Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean conversation, but even if those guys come up and pitch great, you have an offense that can't produce. And jokingly at the beginning, I mean, it wasn't jokingly, but I brought it up early on in the season that, like, hey, the last 5 World Series champs were all in the top 8 of hitting with runners in scoring position. The Mets can't be 23rd or 24th, whatever it was, when we had that conversation. That hasn't gotten better either.
No.
To me, that's an approach thing. That's just the way you're choosing to attack these spots. Francisco Alvarez is not the player that he was 2 years ago, hitting 20-plus home runs. Mark Vientos had a great year last year. What happened? Like, the team is just – this isn't 0-5 rock bottom. This isn't Gary Cohen. This feels like rock bottom. But this is just a team that, like, sure, do I think they can limp their way to the postseason? I don't think Cincinnati's all that great. So, yeah, they probably can limp their way to the postseason. But are you picking them to beat the Padres in a 3-game series? Are you picking them to beat the Dodgers or the Phillies or the Brewers in a series?
Or
right now with the way that they're playing, or the Cubs?
Yeah.
You're not picking them to beat any of those teams.
No. And I mean, again, it's just the hitting has been, like you mentioned at the beginning of the year, that hitting has always been an issue for this team with the lack of execution with runners in scoring position. Juan Soto is among the worst of them, even though his season numbers have been great. A lot of his best hitting has been without runners on base. And that, I think, further points to your point, Chris, that this is an approach issue. When there are runners in scoring position with however many outs there are, it hasn't mattered because the approach has just been bad. Like, the guys are not executing the way that they did at the end of the 2024 season in the playoffs. I've brought this up before. That NLDS game when Jeff Hoffman comes in for the Phillies and the Mets just kept getting clutch hit after clutch hit, stacking up small ball with runners in scoring position and driving in runs. That is not the team that we're watching play this season. And for the first 3-ish months of the season, the starting pitching was doing enough to keep the Mets in the game. And now that the starting pitching has started to decline to a point that is very concerning, the offense still hasn't done anything to carry their weight. And the result is, again, 27-30 record since June.
You watch these games and you just know how they're going to go. You know that if the other team scores 3 or 4 runs, it's probably over. You just have no proof that the Mets are going to turn things around. And I know we're extremely pessimistic on today's episode. And I said to Jack beforehand that I think this was going to be the most frustrated that I've been on a show since we've taken over the podcast. And again, this is the irrational version of this show right now. We're being honest. Like, I'm just frustrated, and this is me venting the frustration. And if they have a good weekend, then I think we'll be back to being rational. But I've tried all year long to be like, yeah, it's not great. They'll turn it around. They're too talented. They still have Juan Soto. It's Pete Alonso. They're streaky. This is what happens. Lindor gets off to a slow start. Then he finishes strong. Like, all the reasons in the book. But at some point, you got to give me something. Like, we're defending the team. We're talking about all the reasons why they should be able to turn it around. And more months on the calendar continue to go by. And this series with the Guardians has just reached my boiling point where I can't watch it anymore. I cannot watch this team continue to have the same approach in these spots and continue to struggle in the same way. And now it's even worse because there's not any life. There's not any energy. And Steve Cohen finally got his dream. He got this team and he's built it over. The place is packed. for the middle of the week on a Wednesday. The place is packed because they are excited about this baseball team. And this is what we're watching on a regular basis. An offense that, with the bases loaded and 1 out, grounds into a double play. Or with the bases loaded in the first game of the series with a chance to walk it off, can't get it done. A team that then Brett Beatty makes a silly mistake in the bottom part of the inning and it's over because you just know they're not going to be able to score. A team that trades for Cedric Mullins in a year in which he's crushing left-handed pitching, and they sit him down against a lefty and throw Tyrone Taylor's at bat back in the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but if Carlos Mendoza is worried about hurting feelings right now, he can't be. Brandon Nimmo, you're sitting down. You haven't hit well in the last 2 weeks. You're getting a day off. I'm going to move this lineup. Soto, you may be hitting 5th tonight. Everything should be on the table at this point to try to turn this around.
Yeah. I just, what I worry about, Chris, is like there are moves that Mendy can make, like changing the lineup, like I don't know, putting Montas behind a opener and letting him be a bulk reliever rather than a true starter. But it just feels like solutions like that they're band-aids on a open, artery wound where the Mets are bleeding out right now and they're trying to patch things up with like a nose strip that's like a single little piece of stickiness. And even if Soto gets moved down to the lineup, even if things change, even if Montas gets moved, we talked about it last episode. The problem isn't the third time through the order with Montas. It's just that he's not been a good pitcher, frankly, for the Mets this year. No pun intended on his name. It's not Juan Soto is bad in that spot in the lineup. It's that the whole lineup has been bad in their approach with runners in scoring position. Like, there's just not a solution that I can see that you can make in the middle of the season to change things up enough, to change the approach, to better things off, to get the Mets in a better position to make a playoff push and make any sort of push past, again, the first round of the playoffs, which there's no reason to even believe they'll make it at this point.
And you said something earlier that this is rational fan coming out again. Eric Chavez was the hitting coach for this team last year when they did all of those things in the postseason, when they had that small ball approach, when they had the great vibes, when they came through in every big moment. And I'm sorry, I don't believe that it was all because Jose Iglesias was on the team and they had the OMG sign and they were playing the song every time they had a big moment. Like, I'm sorry, it's not about that. So Eric Chavez is the hitting coach of this team along with Jeremy Barnes. Chavez was here last year. Eric Chavez was here last year. What changed? Same hitting coach. You added Juan Soto. You added a all-time great hitter, and yet this offense has taken a massive step backwards. What gives?
It's the biggest mystery of the season to me right now, Chris. I don't know what changed and why a team that played the way that they did down the stretch, that had Mark Vientos playing the way that he was all of last season and especially in the postseason, and a team that added Juan Soto, a team that had Francisco Lindor actually not get off to as slow a start as he has for the first 3 years as a Met, made the All-Star team for the first time as a Met. Pete Alonso looking like a better player than we had expected coming into the first part of the season. And all of a sudden, the wheels have just completely fallen off everywhere you look. It doesn't make any sense logically. Like, there's nothing that you can really point to as anything changing.
What would you do? Is there anything that you would do? Or are we just destined to just trying to ride this out with this group and hope that the talent and the players that they are on the back of their baseball card come out at some point?
I mean, that's the thing that stinks is that, like you said, you're tired of hearing Carlos Mendoza say that they just have to start something. They just have to start getting going at some point. And they're a team that has a lineup and a roster full of super talented players that aren't playing up to their potential. And at this point of the season, Chris, like, I don't really know what else he can say because he's right. The Mets are just not playing the ball that they should be. And at some point, they just need to get going. There's nothing they can really do. We talked about it. They can't fire the hitting coach at this point in the season because it invites chaos. There's no easy solution to that. They can't trade for anyone. The trade deadline has already passed. They can't really fix moving around things in the lineup, I don't think, because it's the approach that's the issue. It's not necessarily the personnel and the strategy. So I don't know what to say about what this team can do going forward other than they just need to be better.
We're just running out of time for that, right? Like, I agree with you. Everything you're saying, I 100% endorse. And this is why, like, I don't want to talk about Brendan Sproat and Nolan McLean anymore because it's not going to matter. It's not going to help this team. This team has a hitting problem, and I don't know what solves this hitting problem. Now, I, I don't know what David Stearns is going to do at the end of this season because I don't think Stearns has ever made a coaching change or forced his manager to make a coaching change since taking over in Milwaukee. I'd have to look at the breakdown of the years that he was in Cleveland because he took over in the fall of 2015. So you'd have to go back to the beginning of his tenure there in Milwaukee and go through it season by season to see if they made any changes like that.
I mean,
At,
was Craig Counsell there the whole time too? Like that's a lot of consistency of the same manager and GM pairing, and obviously Mendy's been here the last 2 years as well. But
so the end of 15, so he took over in the fall of 15. Ron Renicky was the manager. After that, it was all Counsell.
yeah,
That's all he had. Now, so 2016 was his first year. So I look at the 2016 Brewers. Let's look. Let me look here because I should be able to see his coaching staff. So I'll just go through this. Craig Counsell was the manager. Pat Murphy was the bench coach. We all know Pat Murphy's been there the whole time because he's the guy that took over.
right.
And Darnell Coles was the hitting coach. So let's do the thing. I'll go through it and I'll just go year by year because that's the 16 team. I'll go to the 17 team and I'll go to coaching staff and I'll tell you. There's Darnell Coles again in 2017. So we'll go to 2018. I'll hit coaching staff, scroll down to the bottom. Guess who the hitting coach was in 2018? Darnell Coles, still there in 2018. 2019, they had a new hitting coach. They had Andy Haynes and Jason Lane. But it took 3 years for them to make that change. And I have to look, was Andy Haynes and or Jason Lane on the 2018 team, or did they go for somebody outside?
Well, here's,
No.
I guess, a follow-up question to that is,
Did Coles leave for another job?
that is a good question. My question was going to be, I mean, I'm assuming because Renicky left and Counsell came in that he started the same year that Counsell did in 2016, you said? And
Yes.
so from my recollection, Eric Chavez has been here since 2022 or 2021.
He was here with Buck, yeah.
He preceded this current regime of David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza. And I almost wonder if, because of the results down the stretch last year, I don't know why they kept Chavez in the first place, but because of the results down the stretch, you can't really fire the hitting coach because the optics just aren't there. The results were clearly working well enough. And the issue in the postseason was not the hitting, it was the starting pitching hitting a wall. And so you bring him back for this year, but maybe in the back of your head, you're thinking, okay, this is more of a prove it year for Xavi. The first part of last season was really bad offensively. Obviously, things improved down the stretch. After this season, maybe he reevaluates. And I think, I have to imagine, based on the way the season has shaken out, Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez are not going to be around, at least in a hitting coach capacity in 2026.
By the way, Darnell Coles resigned from the Brewers at the end of that season and then went to take a gig with the Diamondbacks, so was not fired. So I can't find an example of a hitting coach or anybody on a staff, because he had Counsell and Murphy the entire time, and then Murph took over,
right,
where they fired a coach. So will Stearns do that? Will Mendoza do that? I don't know what the answer to that question is.
It sounded like at Mendoza's post-game press conference on Wednesday that he's getting very frustrated with the offensive approach. And at the end of the day, Chris, that comes down to the hitting coach right now.
Yeah, he used a he used a very important buzzword in the post-game availability yesterday that got me to the same conclusion, because he talked about the game plan.
Right.
And the game plan is only put together by the hitting coaches. And
right.
He said, it's great that we come in with this game plan, but we've got to adjust our game plan. And that to me was like the ultimate, Eric, Jeremy, figure your bleep out, man.
And on top of that, the fact that he went through and pointed out the things that he saw during the game for the approach that Gavin Williams took with lefties and righties, and almost as if to say, I'm seeing this. Why are we not making adjustments, Eric and Jeremy, to make the at-bats look better towards the end of the game instead of progressively worse to the point that they almost get no hit?
And as I said earlier, at one point he said it was easy to figure out what he was doing.
Yeah.
Like that.
If that doesn't point out clear
Right.
frustration targeted at a specific couple of people on the coaching staff,
Yeah.
I don't know what would.
It was the most fire that I think I'm seeing from Mendoza in a little bit. And he also got after the starting pitching the other day
Yes.
a little bit as well. So he is
After
certainly
or before the Guardian series in his
yeah.
pre-series press conference, he said starting pitching is a problem right now. And that's when he first suggested that Montas was not going to be necessarily a starter anymore, because he mentioned the bulk innings situation on Saturday, not necessarily going to be starting. He might have an opener in front of him. And he mentioned Paul Blackburn returning as a starter specifically.
This team's a mess. They have an off day today. They're in Milwaukee starting tomorrow. It's Kodai Senga against Brandon Woodruff, Frankie Montas potentially, or an opener on Saturday against Logan Henderson. And then it's Sean Manaea against Quinn Priester, who ever since getting let go by the Red Sox and going to the Brewers has apparently been awesome. So
he has been incredible. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what more to say, man. You go into this series, you're worried about all 3 days worth of starters. You're worried about the offense. This is kind of where the Mets kind of laugh at us and they go in there into Milwaukee and they take 2 out of 3 and make us all feel better. I'd love that. I'd love to just be able to poke fun at ourselves on Monday, but it just doesn't. It doesn't. I just can't see it. I can't figure out the roadmap right now, and I can't believe I'm saying that about a team that has the players that we have mentioned at the top of this lineup. But I wonder if Mendoza shuffles the deck of cards and it's a totally different group that we see on Friday night, like in terms of the order in the lineup.
I don't know. The other thing I'll say is the Mets always play poorly in Milwaukee, and I am not looking forward to this series. The last time that I remember having a positive experience was in 2022. They clinched their playoff spot in Milwaukee, and then they lost the next 2 games of the series.
Well, hold on. The last time they were in Milwaukee went
okay, hang on. Okay.
But your point
regular
valid.
Season.
Regular season. Yes,
regular season.
The end
right.
of of last year, they
yes.
ended the year before going to Atlanta in Milwaukee, and it was David Peterson, #OurAce, on the last day of the season, saving the Mets bacon, making things matter in Atlanta after they completely soiled themselves the first 2 games of the series.
yes.
It's the nicest way that I can use to describe it, the way they played the first 2 games.
That is the more recent regular season memory that I have. Obviously, the wild card series was a magical thing in itself. But in general,
yes,
regular season in Milwaukee has not been good.
It has been a bit of a house of horrors for them in many ways, and hopefully it's not that this weekend. But I got to tell you, the vibes are not good right now.
I'm fully relying on a Frankie Montas revenge game to light a fire under him and take us through on Saturday.
I don't even know if he's starting.
Well, he's going to pitch a lot of innings. That's all we know.
And it can't be Dom Hamill anymore. We got Justin Hageman now up.
Dom Hamill did not make his major league debut. So
he was on the roster for a whole series, didn't get into a game once.
I think he was only there for 2 days because Hageman came up before the last game.
So was there for 2 days and didn't even draw into the series.
Again, not the move I would have made going into that last series, but oh well.
I feel better that I got it out. I feel better that we yelled about it. I don't know if I'm going to feel better as the weekend progresses and as this series plays out. But we're back on Monday to break it all down. Good, bad, or indifferent. And it's been a lot of bad and indifferent as of late for this Mets team. If you are new, please subscribe, rate, review to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You want to watch the show, you want to see the vitriol, the frustration today, just head over to the YouTube channel. Just search Jack McKessy, McKessy.
I'll also say, if you are new, we're not always this negative. Chris said we have been irrational this episode because there's a lot to get out frustration-wise. Usually we have a lot more nuanced and well thought out takes and rational opinions. It's a tough time right now. And if you've been watching the team, you should be able to understand the process we've been going through today.
I think we try to be smarter fans here on the pod. And there are a lot of good people in the Mets podcasting space that try to be smarter fans. But every once in a while, when a team plays this poorly, I think it's warranted that you take off the rational cap and you just let it vent. You just go for it for 40 minutes or whatever we've been going for. And I needed to do it today because I have just been stewing for the last couple of days about this baseball team. But we're back, hopefully a little more optimistic, hopefully in good spirits, hopefully more rational on Monday to break things down when the Mets take on the Brewers. So try to enjoy it. Let's hope that things go better. I'm going to say the tagline. The energy level that I have in the tagline matches the energy level that the Mets have given us over the last couple of weeks. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.